Ladies and gentlemen, the Metropolitan Board of Zoning Appeals is now in session for its regularly scheduled meeting of April 4th, 2024. I'm Joey Hargis, the Metro Zoning Administrator, and I'll be presenting the cases as the Codes Department has it. And I'll do so from this station on the wall here by means of a PowerPoint presentation. I'll present any maps, photographs, sketches, slides that we've received that were submitted to our office for the appeal. We'll also present information provided by Metro agencies. After my presentation, the applicants will come first to the table in front of the board here. There are four seats there. Just to the right of the microphone stand, at the base of the stand on the right-hand side is a little button, looks like a little robot guy there. Just push him one time. The ring around the light will turn red like mine is. And then identify yourself, name and address, and present your case to the board. It should be noted in the board's rules on cases without opposition, applicants will have 5 minutes to present the case. Just to your right, in front of Ms. Davis, is a clock where we'll keep track of that time. The clock will run during testimony. It will stop for any questions and answers. Questions that the board might have of an applicant and the applicant's answers to those questions. And we'll resume once testimony restarts by the appellant. If there's a case with opposition, both sides of the case, both the applicant and the opposition, will have 10 minutes to present their case. Just a reminder, that's 10 minutes in total per side, not per speaker. So if there are multiple speakers that wish to address this board, divide your time before you come up. You'll have 10 minutes as a group. In that case, in a situation with a case with opposition, the applicant will go first, present their case. The opposition will come up after them, present their case, and then the applicant will have a period for rebuttal. Applicants as I said before, you're going to have 10 minutes. You'll want to save some of your 10 minutes for rebuttal testimony to cover anything the opposition brings up during that time. Once the time runs out, the board will close the public hearing and they'll discuss and vote on the cases in front of you. Board's vested to act on the cases before you as outlined in section 1740-180 of the Metro Code of Law. The board requires, the rules of the board require that 4 members of our 7-member board be present to constitute a quorum. I currently have 6 members of the Board of Zoning Appeals awaiting an appointment for the 7th member. I have 5 members present today, so you need 4 out of these 5 individuals to vote in favor of your case, for your case to be granted. In the event that you fail to get 4 affirmative votes, let's say we have a tie vote of 3 for, and 2 against, that case will stay on our agenda for the next 30 days. We only have 1 meeting in the next 30 days. That'll be May the 2nd. And at that May 2nd meeting, the member who's not present today could watch the case, become eligible, and then participate, or any of the members that participate today are allowed to change their vote at the next meeting. If no one changes their vote and the member who's not present doesn't watch the proceedings, your case will be deemed denied by operation of law. Should be noted that anyone presenting false or misleading testimony to this board that could affect the board's decision, the case approval can be revoked at a later date by means of a show cause hearing. Again, I'll go through all cases set in public hearing today. And like I said, after each case, the board will discuss and vote on each particular case. Should you wish to appeal the board's decision today, you'll have 60 days from today's meeting to appeal that case to Chancery or Circuit Court by means of a common law writ of certiorari. Please consult private legal counsel on how to appeal a board's decision. Before we begin preliminary announcements, the board does allow elected officials to address the board prior to the public hearing. Are there any elected officials present today? All right, Mr. Chairman, I see no hands. So with that, I'll go through some preliminary announcements. I got a few before we proceed to our consent agenda. The first preliminary announcements deal with cases that have been postponed or deferred either by the applicant or by staff. The first case that'll be postponed will be the case on the very front of our agenda, case 2024-14, has been deferred by the applicant until May the 16th, 2024. And the reason for this deferral, members, they're working with the Planning Commission to opt into the urban design overlay. Should that work out, they will no longer need an appeal, but they wish to hang on to their spot if they can't work something out with the UDO requirements, and they need to come here. So case 14 at 2629 Gallatin Pike is deferred until May the 16th, 2024. And then the next case that's postponed is on page 3 of our agenda. It's case 2024-50. Guffin Construction Services appealing a sign located at 3025 Charlotte Avenue. That case is deferred until May the 16th, so we can advertise for 2 variances instead of 1 as previously advertised. If there are any parties present on case 50, that case will be heard on May the 16th as well. Mr. Chairman, that takes care of all the preliminary announcements that we have. Okay, moving on, the board does have a consent agenda. That prior to the meeting, the chair reviews cases with me, and if in his opinion that the case meets the criteria for either a special exception or variance for which they've requested, and they feel that testimony would not alter the material facts, he'll recommend the case for consent agenda to the regular members of the board. When I call these cases, if you'll raise your hand, only if you're in opposition to the case, again, opposition only, to any of the cases that I'll call next for consent. The first case recommended for the consent agenda is case 2024-47. That is the Porch Company, the appellant, Great Abode, LLC, 207, the owner of the property at 207 Perlin Drive, requesting a variance in street setbacks in the R10 district to construct an enclosed front porch. Are there any parties present in opposition to case 47? Mr. Chair, seeing none, this case was recommended for consent. And the next case recommended for the consent agenda is case 2024-52. Mr. Jeremy Payton, the appellant, Keep Calm LLC, the owner of properties at 5701 A and B Maudina Avenue, requesting a variance in street setbacks in the R6 district to construct 2 single-family homes on the property. Are there any parties present in opposition to case 52 on Medina? Mr. Chair, seeing none, the hardship in this case being the floodplain and stream buffers located to the rear. And then finally, the last case recommended for consent case is the last case on our agenda, case 2024-56, Youth Encouragement Services Incorporated, the owner of the property located at 3016 Nolensville Pike, requesting special exception in the CS district for a reduced lot size school, referred to the board under sections 1716-040. Are any parties present opposed to case 56? Mr. Chair, seeing none, that is your consent agenda, members. All right, members, just to remind you, be sure to turn your mics on. The consent agenda has been approved. If you're here for cases 47, 52, and 56, your cases have been granted. If I did not call your case number, that means the case will be heard in its regular order on the agenda. And so, but again, if you're here for cases 56, 52, and 47, your cases have been approved. Please follow up with the Codes Department beginning Monday and to continue processing for your building permit. But the zoning items will be cleared on Monday for your permit. Mr. Chairman, with that, we will call the first case. And the first case, members, I bring to you are adjoining lots. I would ask hear the case concurrently at the same time. It is essentially the same case. There are adjoining parcels involved, but when motion time comes, whether up or down, we'll need a separate motion for each case number for our record. But the cases are case 24-18 and case 24-27. Mr. Roberto Gutierrez is the appellant. XE Development Company for 2419 and LC Parrish, the owner of the property at 2415. They're both requesting special exceptions. There's a typo on case 18. There should be a special exception for street setbacks for 1716-030 of the zoning code. This is in the UZO, and I'll read to you in just a minute the board standards of review for these two cases. I see the appellants are present. Are there any parties opposed to cases 18 and 27 present today? Okay, Mr. Chairman, seeing that, sir, gentlemen, and miss, you'll have 5 minutes. Let me give the presentation first, and I'll turn it over to you guys.
And before you start that, is Mr. Gutierrez here today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Were you ever connected with a company called Impact Connectus?
No, sir.
Okay. I wanted to make sure I represented a company, and there was a Mr. Gutierrez connected, and his name was also Roberto, so I just wanted to make sure I didn't have a conflict. Okay, all right, thank you. Yep.
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks, Mr. Chairman. The subject properties are the three parcels involved. These two parcels, I think, have been combined or are in the process of being combined to the north, but these are the sites, this red parcel. And I keep forgetting to turn on my pointer for you guys so you see what the heck I'm pointing at. These three parcels right here. Cases 18 and 27. They're located on the east margin of Brick Church Pike, just north of Trinity Lane. This parcel you'll see in the next photograph is a hotel development here. There's a funeral home located up on the hilltop here, along with self-service storage, a gas station, and a former hotel that's undergoing renovation here. And I believe this parcel, as well as the next two parcels, are hotels, and a McDonald's down here. But this is Brick Church Pike, I-65 north and south is the larger street you see in the aerial photograph. Trinity Lane is just off the screen to the south. And again, the nature of the two requests are both street setback variances. For the first case, the setback required in this district in CL is 15 feet. The applicants are requesting a 10-foot setback on this tract. This would be the northern portion of the tract. And they stated their issues were in addition to the floodplain, flood zone buffer, and NES easements located along the rear, which are forcing these buildings forward. And this is the tract to the south. The setbacks here requested, again, 15 feet, but the closest approach to this building is at 6 feet, just slightly over 6 feet. Our records will indicate 6 to allow some wiggle room with the same type of issues, which they've denoted as the stormwater buffers in Zone 1 and Zone 2. This is looking into the subject properties, again, the northern tract, the southern tract, that hotel discussed a little bit earlier. Views looking north. I mentioned self-service storage, hotels to the south. And then the funeral homes across the road up on the hill. And then this new development is actually not on Brick Church. It's on the parcel street directly off of, runs parallel Brick Church to the west, but this is a view looking toward the west. Trinity Lane in my photos is just off the screen to the south there. And I'll leave these, I'm happy to switch between them. With that, I'll turn over my presentation to the appellants. Again, folks, you'll have 5 minutes to present your case to the board.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hargis. And I'm Roberto Gutierrez with Jackson Builders. We've been engaged as the general contractor at this project. I think Mr. Hargis covered it really well. I'll just reiterate that.
Can you give us your address too, please, sir, for the record?
Yeah, my apologies. 2819 Old Buena Vista Road, Nashville, Tennessee, 37218.
Thank you.
So yes, I think the primary hardship here is the floodway in the back. It takes up a little more than half of the lot between the floodplain and then I believe is there's a buffer zone. So what we're doing here is just trying to get a little bit closer to the street, and we've also got a cantilever on the second and third floor so that the floor plans can be a little more workable, a little bit more functional. And that's, in a nutshell, that's what this is. Anything, Josh?
Hello, hi, I'm Joshua McDonald, XE Development Company, address, I live at 3818 Heights Ferry Road. No, there's not really too much more to add, except this is pretty much the project in a nutshell. It's what you see before you is what you're going to get. Specifically on 2419, those plans have already been approved from a utility and stormwater grading purpose, and effectively at 2415 is more or less the same thing. It's just copy and paste. So, yeah.
I think that's
Okay.
That's all we have to say.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Members, let me add.
You don't have to use all your time.
No, it's fine. Members, I meant to add the standard and let you know the Planning Commission recommended approval with conditions that the units directly adjacent to Brick Church Pike their condition that they request you place upon the development is that the units directly adjacent to Brick Church Pike shall have front entrances facing Brick Church Pike. But they did recommend approval. And then the standard of review for you all, just a reminder, in 17-16-035 is for special exceptions, that the board shall consider a recommendation from the Planning Commission that says the applicant shall provide evidence to the board that the proposed building setback shall not create an adverse impact on adjacent properties nor detract from a strong pedestrian-friendly environment.
Hey, Joey, I had a question. So why is the one lot here under a variance and the other one here under a special exception?
It is a typo on my part. It should be special exception for both cases.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So question for the applicant. It looks like, looking at the plans you presented, the units directly adjacent to Brick Church Pike do have front entrances facing Brick. Am I seeing your plans correctly?
Yes, I think they also had a side entrance, but we'd probably be eliminating that just due to the grade of the lot. It would result in a somewhat weird sidewalk with steps and a retaining wall, but yeah.
Okay,
So we plan to have front
You
doors.
can meet the conditions recommended by planning.
Mhm. Yes, sir.
Okay, if there are no questions from any of the other board members, we'll close and.
Yeah, members, just real quick, let me correct something I just read to you. Thanks for pointing that out. I read from you the setback standards under special exception. This is under the adaptive residential development standard. And so this would actually be, this is what it says: where a proposed residential development cannot comply with the standards of the section, the applicant shall be required to submit for a special exception by the board. The board, in granting such an approval that special exception, the board shall determine that the applicant has demonstrated the relief being requested will not be injurious to surrounding property nor violate the general plan.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll close the public hearing and discuss. I was going to say there's clearly a hardship, but, which there is, but it's not a variance case, so it's a special exception case, so it doesn't really matter, but I don't have an issue with this. It seems very reasonable, and the council person has pointed out that she doesn't view it as having any negative impact on the surrounding properties, and it contributes to there being more housing in her district, so. Okay, so I'll make a motion that we approve, well, first I'll make a motion that we consider both
I'm
of
sorry,
these.
legal counsel has a.
I apologize for interrupting. I just wanted to make note that there is a note from NDOT regarding case 27.
A note
From
from NDOT.
NDOT, yeah.
Are they recommending a condition too, or?
I believe it's site distance.
Okay, yeah,
Look at the site distance.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out.
Board, you could add a condition that requires that
Right.
site distance submittal be done as part of the building permit.
Right. So I think the first motion we need to make is to consider both these together. Mr. Hargis, is that what you're?
The motions really should be for separate, if you don't
Okay.
mind.
So I'll make a motion with respect to the first case, which is 2024-018, that we approve the special exception with the condition that they comply with the conditions requested by planning and that they submit a site distance exhibit as requested by NDOT that meets the approval of NDOT.
I second.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second.
I was going
I'm
to
sorry.
point out that NDOT commented on case 27, not case 18. So I don't know
Oh,
if we
you're right,
want to.
okay, so we don't, I'll make the motion with respect to case 18, just with the
Conditions.
requirement that they receive, that they comply with what planning has asked them to comply with, those conditions.
And I'll second again.
All right, so there's a motion, a second, any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so that passes. So I'll make a motion with respect to case 2024-027, that we approve the special exception, provided that they meet the conditions that the planning commission has asked for, and that they comply with NDOT's request that they submit a site distance exhibit satisfactory to NDOT.
I second again.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion on that one? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that passes 4-0. Okay, thank you. Those are both passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the last case, did someone not vote? All 5 voted? Okay, thank you. I apologize. I thought I heard 4-0, so, okay, thank you. Cases 18 and 27 have been approved with conditions as stated unanimously, and then I will call forth our next case. Our next case to be heard will be case 2024-45, Lamar Advertising is requesting a variance. It's TLC Properties Incorporated, the owners of the properties at 1204 Jefferson Street, requesting a variance in the distance requirements in the CS MDHA Jefferson Street Redevelopment District, referred to the applicant seeking to convert existing billboard from static to digital, referred to the board under section 1732-050G. The appellant has alleged jurisdiction under section 1740-180B. Are there any parties present in opposition to the billboard case on Jefferson Street? Okay, Mr. Chairman, seeing none, Mr. Michael, you know this routine. I'll go through my presentation and then turn it over to you. The subject property is coming up on the screen now. It's located on the north margin of Jefferson Street, just west of the interstate. You see the parcel located in red. You can actually see the billboard on this area located here. Nature of the request, billboards are permitted with conditions. Strangely enough, digital billboards are listed in the prohibited signs section, but the prohibited signs section says you can't have digital billboards except in these zone districts, which this one is one of the zone districts that you can have it in, but it is subject to a spacing requirement to residential zoning. Residential zoning, the spacing requirement is as follows. The first requires for any sign over at 4 feet has to be at least 100 feet from a residential zone district. And that is zoning district boundary, as the code states. Thus my dimension there. And then it's it's an additional 50 feet for each additional, I got that wrong, 25 feet for each additional foot in height. The existing billboard is currently 50 feet in height, so taking those numbers and extrapolating out, it would require that this conversion, this billboard be 1,250 feet from a residential zone district. The billboard itself sits 112 feet according to the survey supplied by the applicant, and that closest measurement is from billboard to the northwest, right, if you see where my cursor is, that black line right there is the residential zone district. That is R6 back there. And I'm going to switch over to this is the survey I was talking about. List out several different distances. One at 112 feet, that's located from billboard to the residential zone district. I think we do have some residences being built across the street, but they're in CL. And then I think the closest single-family home is across the interstate here. It's about 400 and, see if I can zoom in on that a little bit for you. 439 feet there. All right, so zooming back out, we'll go back to our slides. Oop. This is the billboard and the view of the subject site when I visited on 314. And views across the street. There's townhome currently development being built again in the commercial property. This is looking to the southeast back toward downtown, and the views east along Jefferson Street from across the bridge. You see I'm standing just west of the church located on Jefferson Street, and then there's the billboard view from that location. So I'm going to go back to, Mr. Michael, is this the slide you're most wanting?
Map one more time,
Yeah,
Mr. Hargis.
There you go.
We'll start start there.
Okay.
And Mr. Hargis, if we can double check, I believe the required here, if you use the 25-foot that you referenced from the ordinance for a 35-foot tall billboard, and I'm about to do math, so everybody please check.
Now, I've got
me.
you at 50 feet for this billboard unless they're
I think
proposing.
we're at 35 on that one.
To the top of the structure?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
And if that's the case, then the 35 is, of course, 31 under the allowed 4-footer, which multiplied by the 25 per foot above puts us at 775.
I'll double check that. I was thinking, looking in prep, I'll find the permit when the.
Well,
when the
and our
billboard
arguments
was
will be
issued.
essentially the same even
Yeah.
with that, but I just wanted to raise that in case it was
No
worthy of
problem.
your attention.
During your
thank you, of
presentation, I'll
course.
go through and look that up.
And thank you to Mr. Chairman, members of the board for hearing our case. My name's John Michael. I'm from the Thompson Burton Law Firm, 1801 West End Avenue here in Nashville. I represent Lamar Advertising, which is the group, of course, that operates the billboard here and several other places around Davidson County. Our request is for a variance. Our desire to convert the existing two-sided static billboard to have one side with digital facing, as shown here, roughly northbound to address incoming traffic on Interstate 65 southbound is one that is not directly allowed, as noted correctly by Mr. Hargis, under the provisions of the zoning code at 1732050G2. Yes, you can have a billboard. Yes, it can be digital. Yes, it can be in this zoning district, but it can't be within a defined radius, and that's our math problem that we were just chatting about, whether that be 5 feet, 500 feet, or 5,000 feet. You can't be within a radius of residentially zoned properties. So for us, the question becomes, all right, well, we understand what's the public policy rationale of a law like that? It seems abundantly clear that it's because we don't want light pollution or light intrusion coming into people's homes, into their bedrooms at night, in the evening when they're trying to have a movie night with their children, whatever. It's a smart public policy. However, the ordinance as drafted contemplates a full radius. If I hold up for you a digital billboard that faces you, the members of the board, you're going to get whatever digital light comes out of that. But the people sitting behind me are not, particularly with the advances of technology that have been utilized by the industry in several recent years, but more on that to come. The ordinance doesn't really contemplate that brand new, nice-looking multi-story townhome right behind us on Jefferson Street won't see the illumination, just like they now do not see the face of the billboard in its static condition. Therefore, we believe that the hardship demonstrated here, part with the lot, as you see it, is a somewhat irregular shape based upon the cut of I-40 having taken a significant part of that lot from yesteryear, back in the 60s and 70s when this was constructed. It is, as you'll notice, somewhat more shallow than its neighboring lots, at least in terms of its usable space, again, because of the cut from the interstate. And if we had a contour tool on with this map, it would demonstrate that this is a perfectly flat lot. Very little change from one end to the next. However, as you can see, and as you know from your own driving experience, there's a sharp decrease in elevation as you go down about a 20 to 30 foot bluff of limestone down into the bed of the interstate there. So those land-based conditions present hardships as contemplated under both local and state law. But more importantly for this case, we get into that whole language out of Tennessee Code Annotated 13.7.2073, other exceptional conditions and circumstances. Here, we're working against an ordinance that doesn't contemplate the fact that the light from a digital billboard is plainly not visible other than, well, it's not visible to people or places behind that illuminated billboard. As such, we believe that that hardship created by the exact structure of the ordinance actually presents a hardship that merits the consideration and approval of a variance in this instance to convert the sign from static to digital. But in the little handout that I gave you, which I think includes 4 pages, 2 that are a simple outline of the presentation of our case today, including key facts and that hardship analysis, but also 2 other documents, the 3rd page of which is straight from one of the industry leading providers. I won't call them by name because I don't represent them, but one of the industry leading providers in technology services for digital billboards. This particular company, like some of their competitors, has what is referred to as light trespass mitigation. I like the phrasing there. The idea of mitigating or even eliminating light from going outside of the intended range of view is what these folks are in the business of. Again, I do not represent them. I do not hold this out as my client. They are not. However, I think what you'll notice is that the diagram provided in that page demonstrates the concept, the ability to protect nearby areas within a defined radius completely from light trespass, while always directing the area of view for the digital billboard into those defined areas. As the diagram shows here, they're shooting for an interstate area with a two-sided billboard. Our project is simpler in that it is a one-sided, pointed just north into I-65 as it comes into the city. The other key photos shown at the bottom of the third page of the handout that I provided demonstrate the difference between what you see if you're supposed to see it, what you don't see if you're not supposed to see it. This is the kind of group that my client, Lamar Advertising, I almost always say Lamar Alexander, Lamar Advertising has been working with for the last several years, including when I was still working at Metro Codes. They invited us over to see this. With permission from the board, 60 more seconds to go over the final page.
Sure. Anybody got a problem with that?
Thank you, and we'll hold it to 60, Mr. Chairman. The last thing is provided is just a printout from Metro Parcel View that I colored myself. Pink, that's the property in question, just like it is on Parcel View here, it's the pink property. But I wanted to show more of the northern areas. The green areas on the document that I showed you are in or potentially in the line of view for a digital billboard on that north side of our project here. To the immediate west, that's a 14th Avenue address. That green area can easily be shielded by a slight redirecting of the face of the billboard, a condition that I would recommend you consider and utilize just to maximize the protections for the residential properties, and not just properties, but houses with residents in them there on 14th. Across the interstate, slightly to the northeast, that's a row of residentially zoned properties and some homes on them on 11th Avenue North. Those properties, though further away, are also within the radius that would be contemplated. Several of those properties are anyway for purposes of this ordinance. But with the orange section shown, we are able to utilize the light minimizing technology to just direct onto the path of 65.
Maybe
Naturally,
I
I want to invite your questions.
Let me ask a question.
If you have them.
Okay, let me do that. I thought there was opposition to this, so would he have, it didn't seem like he had spoken for 10 minutes.
There's no opposition here.
Yes,
Oh,
I know
there's
opposition
opposition
present.
letters, but no
There's-
one
There's
here.
some letters. There's at
Okay.
least one, I think.
Sorry about that. I thought maybe you were owed more time.
No, thank you.
That's why I interrupted you. I did have a question, though. I'm still not following the hardship. I know there's a hardship of the land, but what about that hardship is connected to the fact that the client wants a digital billboard?
The land portions themselves are less of a connection. The key portion is that state law provision regarding other exceptional conditions or circumstance. Here, the technology evolved beyond the 1998 ordinance that was put in place and has only been amended 3 times since then, I believe, in 16, 19, and 20, or it might just been 16 and 20, and not on this topic. With the evolution of technology, this is a topic, a thematic topic that this board has heard for years now, but usually with parking variance cases. Think how many parking variances you've heard in recent years for hotels closer to the core of the city, not in DTC, but nevertheless in the core, where we've said everybody's taking an Uber in from the airport. And our 1998 zoning code doesn't contemplate that because it didn't exist. But we recognize that a hotel with, say, 100 keys right on the edge of, say, West End or something near my office does not need 100 parking spaces plus a few for staff, because that's not how they operate anymore. And therefore, folks would come to the BZA and say, please give us a variance. The unusual hardship here is the fact that technology, and therefore the industry, emerged beyond the constraints of the ordinance that is now over 25 years old. In the same way, that concept applies here. With the ability to minimize light, it doesn't matter if anybody's behind me or beside me or off to a couple of angles. If, through my technology partners, I can direct the light where I want it to go with my digital signage, and if that is toward Ms. Carpenek's seat, then someone in Mr. Cole's seat, someone in Ms. Davis's seat might not be able to see it at all. And toward that end, I have talked with my client and suggested that we actually not just welcome, but recommend conditions of approval to the board. I think that, as I mentioned, an orientation of the north-facing sign to make sure that it doesn't show anything to the folks on 14th is a wise condition to add. But more importantly, I think the condition should be that a granting of a variance would only be done with the utilization of leading technology standards for light mitigation technology, and even then, that a UNO not be issued until the final inspection on the project confirms the success of the technology plan, meaning a codes inspector stands at this location that is within the defined radius and confirms, can I see that digital billboard or not? Meaning the illumination, not just the structure itself, of course, the housing. So if you utilize those conditions, the only way that billboard goes up as digital and gets to stay is if it works exactly the way the technology partners tell us and that I represent to you that it will work. If it doesn't, it can't stay up. It has to come right back down. There's no UNO. But we believe that it works, and we're eager to obtain the variance in order to demonstrate proof of concept and possibly put us in a position to consider some other options.
And you're willing to agree that it only be one side, the digital part is only one side?
It has to be. There's just too many houses to the south, and yes, we definitely agree to that.
So, I understand that the board is only legible if you're pretty much dead on looking at it. But what about ambient light and like those, night sky ordinances, like, there's
We have
still
to
gonna be a glow
we have
and
to
increased
comply with that
luminance.
law also.
Okay,
That's the short version of that, is if
Okay.
we don't comply with that, we get taken to court.
yeah, because, I understand that they may not be able to see the boards, but the neighborhood's gonna overall be brighter at nighttime due to the luminance of that.
Well, it's a smart question, Mr. Cole, and you've seen these. I mean, you've had to design around things like this before, where even if it's just floodlights on a house or a street light and what effect that has. Certainly, this is a larger mechanism with more light being emitted. However, in addition to, and I'm going to call their product the wrong thing, keep saying light mitigation, the light trespass mitigation technology, most of the billboards used for digital now also use what is in effect a framing construction that blocks the sides, tops, and bottoms from excessive light going away from them. Again, what matters to an advertiser and therefore billboard companies is, if this is the area I'm trying to make sure can see my sign, I just want to see it. I'm not worried about if these folks can see it because they're probably not looking, they don't have a good view. Why not block that and be better neighbors? And so as the technology, the construction methodology, and certainly this light mitigation technology has advanced through the years, they've gotten a lot better at that. And I think to the benefit, especially in urban areas where we now have more and more and more infill residential development, like the project Mr. Gutierrez just brought. This is the kind of place that would be interested in how this affects them as well, because they're going to have a residential project near an interstate where there are probably some areas with billboards, but they would probably be too close to the billboard for this to get approved. So it's just an example of how we have to get smarter, use technology as a partner, and find ways to make the programs work, because we do have a more urban environment for residential purposes than we used to.
Mr. Harder, can I ask you a question? Because this is a little unique, so.
Certainly.
What Mr. Michael's suggesting is that we could put a condition on that there be a requirement that someone from codes go out before there's a use and occupancy, although this wouldn't be an occupancy issue, and make sure the light is not being directed where it's not supposed to be. That is something we can do.
Yes, sir, you can place reasonable conditions on any variance under Tennessee common law. I stare at the back of the room, my zoning inspector's here. Mark, raise your hand, sir. This will be the fellow I would send out to do that job. So the only thing I would ask of you, if you place a condition, this will be true not just for this case but for others. If this board's ever inclined to place a condition, do think of it in terms of Mark back there and giving him some direction on what are you asking him to do? What are you asking him to verify? So if you're inclined to do that, give me some guidelines of some parameters that he'll need to do. But yes, I would adjust Mark's time accordingly. And sorry, Mark, no overtime.
Any further questions for Mr. Michael?
I had one quick one. A handful of others in opposition, including the council members as well. Are you or your client sensitive to the technology to them?
I've not connected and failed to connect with the council member to outline that.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing and discuss. Well, like Ms. Carpenter, I know there's a special condition and circumstance, but I've always kind of viewed that as it needs to be at least somewhat connected to the land. But, looking at this, I do think this is a unique piece of property because besides the shape of it, which it doesn't really prevent the building the sun, it's right next to the interstate. And, there's a reason I think there's probably not a house on there now because I think if you've got a piece of property directly adjoining the interstate, to me, that's something unique about the property. I'm not disagreeing that there's also, it is kind of like the parking cases we had a lot of where we considered the fact that the code didn't really match technological conditions, being how many people were taking Lyfts and Ubers. So, but anyway, that's my thought about the hardship.
Just looking at our packet, we got 5 letters in opposition. One representing the neighborhood of Buena Vista. I hear the intent to have a standard non-illuminated board on the backside, but, I don't know, it's a tough sell. Tough sell for me.
The only thing I'm sold on is the condition that the inspector go out and see the light trespass on those properties. I don't know, that would be pretty difficult to do, I guess. Driving to every property that's, there's an exhibit that shows every property that's affected. The inspector would have to go to all the properties and double check.
After it's installed.
And before the knows.
Okay.
So, that was the only thing that sold me on approval.
One question, Joey, and maybe, sounds like the distance may be half of what you thought it might be.
Oh, yeah, clarification. While Mr. Michael was talking, I went back to look at the original permits for this. We were both wrong. It's 45 feet from base to top. The permit that actually controlled it was originally issued in 1970, August 1st of 72. Hey, a week before my birthday, and actual birthday. And then the subsequent permits, that board has been replaced over time, and all the subsequent permits say no change in height or size. And so it was built and approved and inspected at 45 feet. So I've adjusted the distances accordingly in the PowerPoint. Not on that, excuse me 1 second, let me. But our revised distances are, instead of 1250 is 1125, based off a 45-foot height. Not 1250, so it knocked off 125 feet, based off the 5-foot difference. And it should be updated now in the PowerPoint. Maybe? Yep, there we go.
Can I open this back up for
Sure.
one question, Mr.
Yeah. Any objection to open it back up to public hearing? Okay, no,
Mr. Michael, 2 questions. One, would it be the intent of your client to install this specific brand? Or is this just an example of the type of technology that exists?
Not necessarily. We would want to use whatever is the best product. This is one that has been pitched and utilized in other places, and therefore that was the one that the client provided to me. It is a nice, simple demonstration for the board of what the idea is here.
Okay. And my second follow-up question is, Is there a viewing distance or a light transmission distance that they say, once you get X amount of feet away from it?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And also-
Although I'm sure the answer to that question must be yes, I'm unfortunately unable to answer it. It's an engineering question that I don't know the answer to.
Okay.
Sorry for that.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing.
So, I'm kind of struggling with this one. I don't actually know how I'm going to vote because I agree with Mr. Cole about the neighborhood argument and the letters of opposition that we received, but I also understand the public policy argument of why this law exists and how when this law was created, technology wasn't able to do what it does today. And I don't really buy the hardship argument for the land because I don't think the irregular shape of the lot has anything to do with it. But I do think the location of where it is, like, I know where this is on Jefferson. It's at an interchange as you go, like, as you're headed towards the bridge. It's right there where the interstate is and as you're going further down Jefferson. So I was wondering, like, we've talked about this twice recently, and I don't want this to become something that we typically do, but given the sensitivity of this type of issue and to see if Mr. Cole, what he thinks. The last two meetings where we've had significant neighborhood opposition to a particular development or to a daycare in a home neighborhood, we sort of talked about the community being able to come back and asking us to review it again if the harm that they're upset about is actually impacting their property. Like, am I making sense? Because I do think that the zoning administrator can go out there and check, and that would be a great condition. I want that condition, but also to add a condition where there's a review period, and if the residential neighborhood that's most impacted by this has light pollution, and is being negatively impacted, that then we would review it again. I don't know how Mr. Michael would feel about that, but I'm sort of torn, so that's why I thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we before sent people back to basically talk with the community. I guess my concern about that, and I mean, at the very...
So I forget what we said last time, and Mr. Hargis can correct me. We talked about this last time where we had like significant neighborhood opposition to that daycare in Rivergate, Madison, and we said that the community could come, what was it, like a show cause?
Oh, show cause hearing.
Where they could have a show cause hearing to show that she's not following the conditions, and so therefore we need to review the permit that we issued. I'm asking for the same thing here, not that they go out and talk to them. They haven't done that, but I don't think that's moot now. I'm saying if we approved it, one of the conditions is if the neighbors in this area want to petition the codes department for a show cause hearing saying, hey, you granted this under the presumption that it's not going to create harm based off of Mr. Michael's presentation. It actually is, and here's our proof, and they want us to review it again. So that's...
So they would, the members of the community would come back before us after it's...
Installed, yes.
So they'd have the right to come back and say, even Metro's approved it, but we're having issues with it.
And that we approved it under the assumption that the technology that Mr. Michael referenced, it wasn't going to create this problem, but they come back and say, actually it is, and here's our proof.
Would that mean that they technically would have to uninstall it,
Probably.
potentially?
If they showed the proof. It would be a show cause hearing. We would have to listen to their evidence. Mr. Michael would get to counter their evidence, and then we would get to decide. Because if we granted this, because I understand Mr. Cole's concern, if we granted this, we would be granting this under the assumption that Mr. Michael can do what he said he's going to do, and this isn't going to cause light pollution for all these residential homes in this area. I'm saying, well, if within a year the neighbors come back and say, hey, this actually is, and here's our proof, then we would have another hearing and we would look at it.
And in years past, generally we've had those types of things on historic home events, and I think of one in South Nashville in particular, where the process for that, the neighbors would come to the codes department with a complaint through the zoning inspection division. We'd investigate it, make sure there's at least a scintilla of evidence of what they're telling us. If there is, we would bring that back to the board. We'd notice the applicant, his client, Lamar, or if the board sold to somebody else, we'd notice whoever the owner of the board was, that we'd be having a hearing. We'd send out notices again. And
so I don't know how Mr. Cole feels about that, but that was my thought, because I am sensitive to that.
So, I think there's a way to measure and quantify light pollution, but I also think there's like this, we gotta figure out like perceptibility, right? If people can see it, if they don't want it, they're gonna complain just in general, so, you know, I just have a tough time getting behind something that it's pretty clear the sentiment is pretty strong around not wanting this in their neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, Ashanti, I think everything you said was spot on. And they could have a billboard with lights that shine on it that actually might, in a sense, have more light pollution if you measured it from a lumen standpoint or whatever the measurement is that you would use to determine this. And then put this in and there's actually less light. But
I mean,
reaching
I
in
get
there,
the-
but it's all perception, so it's really
Yeah, it's the perception
almost
I
an
get,
an
yeah.
somewhat immeasurable thing to come back, right? Because it is about perception. Where historic, you can kind of see that, did they use the appropriate molding or roof pitch or whatever needs to be measured. So I think that's the problem. I mean, I wish there was a little bit more concrete data, like this distance, it's this lumen. We introduced this new technology to the neighborhood, and this is a specific brand that we're going to use. And I think that would have been probably more helpful. But I mean, this is the first time I'm personally seeing something like this, so it's hard for me to understand the immeasurables, I guess, at this point.
Well, I think if the community had the ability to come back, as Ms. Davis has suggested, we could listen to them, and if they say, look, it's coming through my bedroom window or whatever, I mean, that gives them, and I understand there are several letters of opposition. I kind of think that, I mean, we see a lot of this in all different kind of cases where the community hears about something and there's kind of an immediate, you assume the worst. I would do the same. If I assume something's coming to my neighborhood, I kind of think in my mind about all the ways it could go wrong. I'm not sure that they quite, and they're not here, which I understand too, but I'm not sure that they quite have the benefit of this technology and what the applicant is willing to do, which to me seems pretty significant, because my guess is that putting one of these is not going to be a cheap endeavor. I don't know, but I'm convinced that the technology appears to be solid enough that if we could leave it with the neighbors, if they have the right to come back up in whatever period of time and make the case that this is not working for us, I would be okay with that. And I'd also want a condition that Metro, before it's used, that they go out and demonstrate. I mean, I think what they could do is someone could just go along these 11th Avenue where you've got these 6 or 7, well, probably 8 houses in a row, and then there's another one back kind of behind the sign. So I think that's doable. I mean, the other alternative is they just don't get the opportunity to do this. And
The current sign has illumination now on it, I believe, right? Right. Which, I mean, that seems to me like the most reasonable idea. If I was going to lean, tip my hat a little bit, it just gets back to how do you measure it, and potentially putting Mr. Michael's clients in a spot where, it's a risk they have to take. They don't have to install it, but they have the potential for it to be uninstalled.
Mr. Chairman, respectfully, if I understood Mr. Ransom's question to be a question for the appellant, I can actually address that, but if not, I'm happy to sit quietly.
anybody have a problem with Mr. Michael addressing that question? Okay.
Mr. Ransom, state law governs the degree of illumination, the amount of light, whether foot candles, lumens, or whatever other unit of measurement that's used for light. Foot candles is choppy, and we've struggled with the Metro ordinance for years on that. But there are restrictions. They are defined. I didn't bring that up today. I'm sorry that I didn't prepare that part of the engineering or anything. But we have to follow state and local law in terms of the amount of light, direction of light. For changing displays, you probably know there's a state law that says you must hold a static display on your digital billboard for X number of seconds before changing, so that it's not like a recurring TV screen, but instead a still picture for, I think it's 8 to 10 seconds, one of those two under state law. So we have to go by those guidelines as well. And the board doesn't carry the burden of having to figure out the calculations of the lumens on something like that, fortunately.
And I appreciate you following up with that. Things like, for example, this is 1,100 or so feet is what's required, and some of the areas are much, much shorter than that. So things like the state requires X amount of lumens, but we're going to produce 50% of those lumens because we're much closer, something along those lines. Just something for us, at least for me, to put some teeth into, wanting to approve this. I do understand the lots in a particularly odd location against the interstate, but I believe across the street there's townhomes going up right now. And I don't know if they're abutting up. I mean, they abut up to 12th versus the interstate directly, but it's right there. So I guess I'm back to where I started.
So, Ms. Davis, what do you have in mind in terms of the community show, I guess you'd call it a show cause hearing? What time periods, and after any period of time, or up to a year, or what would you?
It'd probably be a year.
That up to a year, they could at any time essentially
After it goes up, yeah.
bring it back to this board for a hearing as to whether the sign should remain. Okay.
I'm concerned about that, just knowing that this neighborhood is going to be very different over the next 5 years. So, for example, the direction that board is facing, those two empty lots across from Mount Zion Church are in the process of being developed with, I believe, two mixed-use office towers, and it seems like that billboard's going to shine like right towards that building. I don't know. In a year, we may not have those developments, but a few years from now, it could be eyesore. I don't know. Maybe we just vote on it.
Looking at Mr. Michael's diagram, it looks to me like the light's going to be directed really right onto the interstates and the areas, or the roadway that's interstate in the area, pretty much directly adjoining. So, where is can you point out where your concern is, Mr. Cole?
I know what.
And looking at what was submitted to us as kind of the direction. I mean, it's clear to me that if that direction isn't, if the light comes out of what they've told us where it's going to be, I mean, it would affect residential lots right now, probably.
Mm-hmm. So, if we're on Jefferson Street, going back towards downtown, right after you cross over the interstate, to the right, there are two large gravel lots. There's nothing there right now. Yep, right there.
Right there, okay. Well, that's an area he's saying that they're not going to direct the light towards on this.
Because won't it be behind it? Like, won't the sign be going this way? I know where you're talking about, Mr.
Yeah,
Gold, but like,
I think what he's saying is it's going to be going away from that area.
Okay. All right, let's vote for it. Let's vote on it.
I have one more question, so we go back up one more time.
Any objection to, any objection? Okay.
Mr. Michael, do you know if they make, this company or any associated company, make additional features or attachments or things they can, if it is in, it certainly can't be the only billboard or what have you that's in a more dense neighborhood that would continue to further mitigate the side pollution. Maybe it just comes down to the way that the board is, but if there's any additional things that could be done.
You'll have to forgive a fairly broad answer. Yes, I am aware that there is that kind of construction and technology that's being used more and more than ever before. Unfortunately, I'm not in a position to give you product specs, technology background, but years ago, and this was even before Mr. Hargis came back to codes, Mr. Herbert and I were invited to sit with a group, didn't ask anything of us, didn't want anything of us, wanted to show us the new light mitigation technology that they're technology partners were pitching to them, demonstrating how they were able to block from sides, top, and bottom. Spillover light was the phrase that was often used then. And frankly, it was eye-opening for us at the time because for years it just thought of, if you got a digital billboard, it goes every direction it goes. And I think some of the concerns that Mr. Cole addressed acknowledges that reality from the past. However, that was even when I was still here, so at least 3, 4, 5 years ago, that we learned about that, but we haven't seen it implemented much lately, or haven't seen it implemented much yet. What we know, though, Mr. Ransom, is yes, there is that product out there. There are those measures out there. It's used better and more frequently than ever before. And this is our opportunity to plug one in, because if we were allowed to construct and get what is in reality a proof of concept on all of this, one, it has to come right back down if the Metro inspector says, no, it doesn't work the way it's supposed to. We can see the light at these 3 or 4 key areas that we already know are in the range. Therefore, you don't get a UNO and the thing has to come down tomorrow. We'll have to use every single piece of technology available, probably, to make sure we're demonstrating to the board and therefore to the public that we're serious about making it work exactly the way that all of our partners assure us it will work.
Thank you.
Well, I'll take a crack at a motion unless somebody.
I had a quick question too. So, I was just thinking about this as Mr. Michael was talking. Like, I think that condition would be good, and even if it was 2 years, I think that would be fine, given that there's a new residential construction across the street. I guess my question is, codes violations don't, so according to this map that Mr. Michael provided, their goal is to not have any spillover light into any of the residential neighborhoods. That's their goal. So if they did, whether we, like, whatever our conditions are or not, like, that would be a violation of the code, because the point of the law is for residential areas not to experience spillover light from these types of billboards. So to Mr. Cole's point, like, as this neighborhood changes, as developments happen, like, if someone experienced that spillover light and it's not supposed to happen in a residential area, they may have a codes violation anyway, in which they could call Joey and he would send a zoning administrator out and they would have to research it anyway. I don't know if that's like feasible, but I was just thinking about it. Like, the neighbor I have today who's behind me on Trinity Lane at my mom's house, what they're doing today is a code violation. But if that business backs up and goes does something else, then that wouldn't exist anymore, because it's changed. And so, and let's say a new person moves in, it has a whole different type of codes violation. Like, it doesn't change the code. Like, the code, the point of this law is to protect residential areas from signs like this, the spillover light. And so I don't, even if we approved it, and I do think we should put conditions, I don't know if as the neighborhood changes, if those people, our approval somehow waives their right to that, I guess is what I'm saying.
I have assumed it would not.
Yeah, I assume it doesn't
assumed
either. And Joey's nodding, but I don't know if he's nodding towards me.
Well, the code as written, remember, is residentially zoned properties, not uses. So if I've got a use that's zoned mixed use, but it's a residential use, or, ground floor retail residential, that is not something we measure a distance to in the code. It's straight R zones, RS, RM. So just understand there may be, the way the code's written, many places says residential use or districts permitting residential use. This one's not written that way. Granted, we probably need to revisit the billboard section of our zoning code.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, I'll take a crack at a motion. Before I do, this has been, Mr. Harris, this diagram that Mr. Michael gave us with the orange path of where the light is, that is part of the record now? Okay, that'll be part of the record. Okay. So I'll make a motion that we approve, based on the hardship being the unique location and shape of the lot, as well as the special circumstances related to this, the code and the available technology that the code probably didn't contemplate. But there'd be 2 conditions. One, that after the sign is up, that the applicant be required to prove to a codes inspector that the path of the light is as represented it would be in this diagram that Mr. Michael has given us that shows an orange quote, the path of our digital light for Interstate 65, and that the codes inspector ensure that the light is not going into any of the residential areas that are adjoining the sign. That would be the first condition. The second condition would be that any neighbor or neighborhood group within 1 year after the sign has been approved by Metro to be operational has the right to file whatever is necessary to come before this board and has the right to essentially contest that the sign remain and we would tell the applicant right now that if we were convinced by a neighbor or the neighborhood that this was not working out, the light was not being directed as represented, that we would have the right to have the sign removed. Yeah.
And my only amendment to that is 1 year after maybe it's actually installed versus approved.
So
Maybe
1 year
it's the
after it's
same.
installed.
It's operational, yeah.
I said operational, correct?
You did?
I think you did.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Do you want to, my thought of operational, it gives the neighborhood more time.
Yes,
Okay, so we'll leave it as 1 year after it becomes operational.
yes.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
So that's the motion. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so that passes 4-1. All right, thank you. Next case.
Yeah, next case before the board is case 2024-51. Is the applicant present for case 51? Okay. Are there any parties opposed to case 51 present?
Who knows, we'd have to spend so much time on billboard.
Okay, well, for time and purposes, board, we'll keep it at 10 minutes just in the event the gentleman would like to speak. I will go through the case record first as we have it, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Jones to present. You guys are welcome to come forward if you'd like to right now. Let me go through our presentation, give some background on the case. Mr. Jesse Lee Jones, the appellant and property owner of the property located at 1508 Rosebank Avenue, requesting variances in allowable size, rear and side setbacks, and height in the R10 district. The applicant seeking to allow for an already constructed garage referred to the board under section 1712-020, 1712-060, and 1712-050, jurisdiction under section 1740-180B. The subject property is located on the west side of Rosebank Avenue. It's the larger parcel that you see in red here. Building in question is located at the back of the property. This is the survey provided by the applicant. The applicant came into our office last year and sought a permit for 2 additions on the building located at the rear. Those are labeled by the applicant's handwriting as letters A and B. These constructions had already occurred. Based upon his notes, and I apologize, it's sideways. A was an addition of 600 square feet, and B is an addition of 500 square feet. That's 1,100 square feet additional area. The gentleman was issued a permit in 1997 that predates this code to build a detached garage at 1,800 square feet. So the initial garage size was legally non-conforming as we came into the zoning code because he obtained his permit prior to the adoption of this zoning regulation. The current zoning regulations restrict detached buildings to 50% of the footprint of the residence. As you can tell just on the existing residence at the time, and I think there's an addition here, and I'll show you some aerial photographs that'll go through. But these are the variances. So he's allowed 1,800 square feet, which is what he was permitted. The 2 additions push him up to 2,900 square feet. These additions at the rear, at the time the building was constructed, it complied with the setbacks, both rear and side yard. And as you'll see over time, as these additions were added without permit, the setbacks came into question. We list zero.
So B and A are the additions that were added to the existing building?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. The original footprint, and you'll see it in the aerial photographs from the first picture I have, is in 2007. It was as it was built 10 years prior. The surveyor on his survey showed a potential encroachment in this bottom corner here. That's why we've listed the side setback at 0 feet. The overall height of the structure has increased. It was permitted at that time at 16 feet based on the surveyor's information that he provided here using above sea level heights, put it at 18 and a half feet. Okay, this is looking at the subject property upon my visit on the 14th of March, and then views to either side. I did not have access to the backyard as the applicant wasn't there, so obviously I'm not going to trespass on the property, but I wanted to give you some idea through aerial photographs of the time, and if you're able, I don't know if you can see the date there. I'm struggling with my computer to read it, but up in the corner, this is February of 2007, and this is the building as it was constructed. This matches our 1997 site plan and location of the original structure that's set here in 97. And then as time went on, these views coming into the future now, 2015 again, we've got the beginnings of an addition which would be labeled as A on his site plan here. At the time this photograph was taken in February of 2015. It was not yet enclosed. It becomes enclosed in subsequent photographs. Again, this time frame, March of 2017, not only has that addition been enclosed, but it's been enlarged and it extends beyond the rear of the existing building. And then coming forward in time, February 2021, you can see that that's been completely remodeled and an addition's been put on the rear back here. The next photograph I've got shows very clearly, you can see based upon the roof area, kind of where the roof, I believe, was probably raised a little bit to accommodate the slope of the addition. The gray rooftop would be those additions post 2007 that you saw in the first slide. That's the nature of the request, is seeking to obtain a permit for those additions that were constructed previously. With that, sir, you'll have 10 minutes to present your case to the board. If the opposition or the folks that are invested in this case would like to speak, you'll have a period for rebuttal. And I'll turn it over to you.
Well, my name is Jesse Lee Cavalcanti, 1508 Rosebank Avenue, Nashville, Tennessee, 37206. And I'm here to learn what I've done wrong. And that's about it.
Well, I mean, you didn't get permits for any of
Yes,
this, so
right.
what's the story on that?
Well, I didn't know that I had to get a permit. I really didn't know. Since I was building it myself, I didn't know that I need to have a permit. I think I got excited about all the vehicles I was buying, and I wasn't bothering anybody, and I did what I did. And I'm sorry if I broke any laws.
You did not, in your application, you did not identify any hardship of the property that you're relying upon for this variance. So we're gonna assume there's not one unless you tell us. I don't see one, but this is your opportunity to try to explain
Right.
what kind of hardship you have that relates to the shape of the land or the topography of the land.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. The hardship.
Well, is there something in the shape of this property or the slope of the property that you believe supports a variance?
I can't answer the question.
Okay, all right.
Forgive me, I don't know.
Any questions for the applicant? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and discuss that. Are you in opposition? I think you said, I couldn't quite hear you.
I'm the neighbor behind, so I'm here just to observe.
Okay, are you here to speak against it, or are you here to speak for it?
I was hoping to ask a question about how the issue came up, if I might.
Well, I mean, we typically we limit this to, you're either here to oppose it or you're here to support it. Do you have a question that relates to, if it's answered a certain way, you might oppose it, or you might?
The answer to my question would determine if I was opposed or for.
Okay.
So my question is, how did this even come up to begin with? So you say that there was, they came in and provided or requested a permit, but was there a reason behind the permit?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't.
Yeah, okay, because my only fear as the neighbor behind is that would then turn the building, there's a.
Okay, so I tell you, why don't you just come up and we'll treat it like we're not saying you're in opposition, but we're just going to give you a chance to speak, because I'd like you to be on the record, and then we can ask you a question. If you can state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Is this on?
Yeah, if you can state, well, no, you need to hit it. You'll see a red button.
There we go.
Okay. If you tell us your
guys.
name and your address.
My name is Chase Beckman. I live at 1511 Wendell Avenue, the property directly behind. My only question is, my concern is, if there was a project to turn the garage into residential units, I would be opposed to that.
Okay, so you essentially don't have an objection now, but if this part of this structure became residential, you would object. Is that
That's
fair to
correct.
say?
Yeah. So what I was wondering is, did this come about because you guys were trying to sell the property? And there was an issue there, so now you're trying to get permitting for the out of compliant building, or were you trying to get a permit to alter the building for a different use case?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. The reason why this came up is because the house is for sale.
Mm-hmm.
And a gentleman that came that was very interested in the house, and there's two people that are very interested in buying that house. And both of them, the main reason is because of the garage.
Yep.
They love the garage. And I don't know if they're car collectors, as I am. I don't think that there is any intention or ideas of building a home or anything there.
Okay.
Although there's plenty of room, but I wouldn't. I would oppose that myself.
Okay. Yep. Yeah.
For sure.
If that's the case, then I
Yes.
either abstain or would approve. I'd have no objection to. The
Okay.
garage doesn't hinder me or my family in any negative way whatsoever.
Okay, did you write in one of the letters of objection?
I did not, no.
Okay, all right. There were, I believe, at least two or three, so, all right, we'll close the public hearing and at this point.
Thank you, guys.
Would forgive me. Would my neighbor be okay or allowed to speak?
She's
on my behalf.
speaking in support.
In support.
Okay, you have some more time left, so we don't have to close the public. I understood you to be through talking, but
Okay.
if she's here in support, you have time left. So, ma'am, if you'll state your name and your address.
I'm Deborah Leeper, 1502 Rosebank Avenue, Nashville, Tennessee, 37206. I've been there for 35 years, I can't remember. But from the corner of Sheridan and Rosebank, from that corner to the property in question, which is 1508 Rosebank, I own 1500 Rosebank, 1502 Rosebank, and 1504 Rosebank. There's one more house, and then the house in question is 1508 Rosebank. I have absolutely no objection whatsoever. Jesse Lee Jones has been a model neighbor. The thing that kind of worried me about this is that I think there might be an insinuation that he did something underhanded intentionally. And I can tell you that I know him very, very well. Not only does he do everything beautifully, whatever he does, but he's just been a generous neighbor, a generous business. He brings, music to Nashville. He's concerned about our legacy issues in Nashville. But he came here as a legal alien from Brazil, jumped through every hoop that he could find to jump through, came into Tampa, set down his suitcase and his guitar case to talk to the ticket agent, and both of those things disappeared, so he got here with nothing. And he came here and eventually came to Nashville because that was his goal. Went to work at the General Jackson cleaning the bathrooms. They walked in on him and said, "Why are you on the floor with a toothbrush?" And he said, "Whatever I do it well." And that is exactly right. I'm really certain that coming from a lawless place like he did, and coming here, he has always been really verbal about his support for law and order. He's gone to, he attended police academy in Illinois, did not finish but 2 years of college. And of course, here he's gone to the Citizen Police Academy. His respect for the law has been, it's what you would dream of for a citizen, let alone a naturalized citizen, which he now is. A naturalized citizen has been since, he can tell you, November of 1990, because he remembers exactly that day. He is a patriot, he is law-abiding, and if there's anything here, it was just a guy coming from another country that just didn't realize that when it closed in his carport, so that we wouldn't see it from the road, because he's got a bunch of antique cars, and then enlarged the garage toward the back, that it would just keep the birds from messing up his cars, which he polished on every single day, and keep the weather. We have hail storms and things just to protect them from the storms, and I can guarantee you that there's no underhanded, dishonest thing here. It's just a guy that doesn't know all the rules, not knowing what rules to ask. And actually, you drive 20 miles out of Nashville, I would suggest that many people that have been here all along wouldn't really think about closing in their carport and adding to the back of their garage, needing a building permit. I watched him put it up. I own several homes around Nashville, and I saw the quality of the things that he had done, all the work that he did on that house. Mitigated it for black mold because the guy that owned it before just ruined it. He's just improved our neighborhood. It's the guy that hires a guy that's living in the alley to work in his business just to get him out of the alley. He's been generous to a fault, and I don't think there is a bone in his body that would have done this in an underhanded way. And I just think that's worth mentioning.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
She spoke the truth. That's why I call it a sin. I don't know what I've done, and that's why I'm here to learn.
So procedurally, are we on the rebuttal now? Because I wanted to ask
Well,
a question of the other neighbor.
Okay,
Is
I
that
think,
okay?
I'm not sure where we are procedurally. It's a little bit, but I don't think anybody objects to you asking the neighbor a question.
Can you point out your house on this to us?
The one directly to the left on the picture shown.
So it's to the left of the pink?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, the short lot.
And you've lived in your house a while, and you
Since-
said this hasn't bothered you?
Yeah, the construction actually happened while we lived in the house. We've lived in there since, I believe, 2017.
Okay. Thanks.
Got a question for Mr. Jones. You said you weren't aware that you needed to get a building permit?
Yes, that's correct. I was under the assumption, or been told, that as the proprietor, as the owner of the house, if I was building the garage myself, I didn't have to ask permission.
You don't have to, I believe, you don't have to have a contractor's license, but you still need to get a building permit, I
Yeah,
believe.
sure. I know it now.
Any further questions for the applicant? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and discuss.
I feel like I have to recuse myself because I love Mr. Jones' bar so much. He's the owner of Robert's Western World. I'm in a tough spot, kind of half joking, but
Well, I mean,
as a builder, I find it that don't ask for permission, but ask for forgiveness. It's really tough for me to swallow, you know? He has support of his direct neighbors, and it sounds like he's good in the community. You know, whether he sells it or someone else comes in, it's hard, because someone could always convert it to residential illegally, right? So.
Well, I wonder, it's zoned R10, so I wonder if legally someone could
I don't think they
make
could.
it.
And we could ask the applicant, I doubt it's a conditioned space, we should ask that too.
Right. I was gonna ask the codes department though, because it's zoned R10. Could that garage be converted into a second dwelling because it's zoned R?
Not without variances. We treat accessory structures, his particular case would be full setbacks are required, both now and conversion to a house. In a structure, let's say it's under 700, we do have setback breaks for accessory buildings under 700 square feet. But when that change of use occurs to convert that, except for dadus, if I want to take an existing detached garage and turn it into a full unit duplex, they have to meet the full setbacks of the zoning code at that time.
So even if we were to allow this today,
Well, if you grant a variance, the variance runs with the land, unless you put a condition that your variance is only for use as a garage, and then,
okay.
Maybe that's the.
Joey, if someone, subsequent person owned this and they wanted to convert it to a dadu, what would they have to do in order to do that?
they would need variances from this board because it violates the dadu provisions. Dadu has its own restrictions of size, living area, setbacks, and those types of things. So they would be back here asking for a variance to convert it to a dadu. It would not be dadu eligible. When I say that, it would be because the lot is over 15,000 square feet. So dadu is a possibility, but not without variances from this board, from all the conditions of a dadu.
Okay, thank you.
May I?
Well, so I do not disbelieve the applicant. I take this as a oversight and an innocent mistake, but I don't think that, I mean, there's three variances requested here. You know, they're all fairly significant. There's a 10-foot violation of the rear setback, almost a complete violation of the side setback. There's a height, and I would have a hard time approving it even if there was no objection from a neighbor, but there is an objection, and I can't put my arms around any hardship here. I feel for the applicant. I do believe him, but I don't think I can't find a way to approve this, to be direct. So, but I'm open to. I'm certainly capable of missing something. So.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest concern is safety, side setback, from a fire standpoint, assuming anybody else in the adjoining lots builds anything in the rear. Looks like there are two separate additions. I also hate to make anybody peel back what they have, but.
Well, I'll make a motion that we not approve the application.
A second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, I'm sorry, but that application was not approved.
Okay, so what do I have to do? Take it down?
You have a right to file a writ of certiorari with either Chancery Court or Circuit Court, Davidson County.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to talk to the applicant
And
after.
Mr. Hargis can talk with you about that.
Next steps for you, sir.
Okay,
Is it-
so,
Is it possible for me to say one more thing?
sure.
May I? Can we go back
If
to
you
the
can keep it
map
quick,
that-
because we've got another case or two on the docket.
I understand. Can we go back to the map that shows all the houses in a row?
No, well, we'll let you ask a quick question.
Okay, we have the last 5 lots on that street that are intact. The rest of them have been built double houses, 4-pole houses, 4-pole houses. We, divided, so A, B, C, and D on one lot. We have the last homes on that, in that area, pretty much on our street that are original
And
lots.
so what's your question, ma'am?
My question is, I know that there's rules, I understand all that. It's just the idea that they can come along and put in two houses where there was one for
That
house.
doesn't, I think you're kind of making an argument.
No, I'm not. I'm just wondering how that compares with adding on to your garage.
That's just something we can't answer for you. We're here
I
to
understand.
approve or disapprove the application. But,
Just a curiosity.
yeah, so, okay. Thank y'all. We'll call the next case. Does anybody need a break, board members, before we take the next case?
Your
Or y'all
staff
wanna-
needs one.
Is there just one more?
I need a break.
Okay, so
if
we'll
you
take a
don't mind.
5-minute break. We've got, we just have one case left. We'll get to you if we can have 5 minutes.
Get back underway here in just a moment.
Okay, we ready for the next case?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. The next case and final case before the board today is case 2024-53. T. Wilson's the appellant, Olive Branch Missionary Church, the owner of the property at 938 Haven Hill Drive, requesting a special exception in the RM40/RS10 district. Appellant seeking a reduced lot size school for no more than 100 children. Referred to the board under section 1716-040. The appellant has alleged jurisdiction under 1740-180 item C. We do have a letter in support, I believe, from the council member. We did get a recommendation from planning of disapproval. I provided a copy of that planning recommendation to the appellants. They intend to address that during their time. But first, let me go through our presentation first.
Did you say you gave us a letter from the council person?
I thought I had maybe that was
That
for
was a different one.
that was for the prior case,
Yeah,
same
was-
applicant.
That was for the one on,
Yes, sir, the case 56, my apologies.
okay, all
Yeah.
right. So we don't have any.
I
word
do
from the
not
council
see
person
one
on
in my
this.
packet for case 53. Just double checking, let me make sure. I do have a large set of construction drawings. If there's anything from a council member prior. I don't believe there was, but
Okay, so.
Ms. Jenkins is going to look at that, and
council
I'll proceed ahead. The subject property is located up on Hilltop. This is Murfreesboro Road, Murfreesboro Pike, the large street here. Haven Hill Drive runs up here. This is the Olive Branch Missionary Church sits at the top of that hill. This is a ortho photo. If you're familiar coming down Murfreesboro Road, there's a retirement building that sits up on the hillside. There's actually a physical connector between the two structures, I think, that's in the process of becoming removed at some point in the future. I've had some inquiries about removing that connection. But this is the existing church and classrooms, Sunday school room spaces that the church uses. Their request is to utilize portions of this wing, and I've included some drawings showing the extent of their use of those spaces and rehabs of the first floor space. Again, another view of the site. They have a large parking lot. It's my understanding that the intent, and the applicant's going to cover this during their time, they are not requesting 100 students right off the bat. It's going to be much smaller and grow over a couple-year time period. So, a view in the subject site, in front of the existing church, those classrooms I talked about are just over to the right, and then a view looking toward the south. And that's, actually just leave this drawing up for that. With that, are there any parties present opposed to this case? Any parties in support? Okay, do have support, folks, here. 5 minutes will be given. Ladies, there, just by your microphone stand, just to the right of the stand is a little, kind of a half moon. Hit that, and your ring will turn red, and identify yourselves when you speak and give your testimony to the board. There you go.
Hello, I'm Lydia Shoemake, and I'm the founder and CEO of B Academy for Girls, and we are an all-girls school opening this August here in Nashville, Tennessee.
Hey, ma'am, can you give us your address for the record?
Yes, my home address?
That'd be fine.
Okay, 807 River Chase Boulevard in Madison, Tennessee, 37115.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and we will be serving girls 6th through 8th grade our first year. And we have a STEAM approach for our girls that is culturally responsive. So we will actually be using our community as our classroom, which means our girls will have hands-on experience with working with individuals in STEAM careers. And that way they'll have early access to knowing what it is they want to do.
Good afternoon. My name is Phyllis Hildreth. My address is 3500 Woodmont Boulevard, Nashville 37215. And I have the privilege to serve as the chair of the board for this nascent school. We would like the opportunity to use our time to further elaborate on our immediate plans, focusing on the next 2 years and expressing our dissent with the planning department analysis and our belief that our planned operations are fully consonant with the policy intent of the zoning and the restrictions that you may wish to see placed upon us. This opportunity to start what would be one of the first all-girls school in the city particularly focusing on girls from brown and black cultural perceptions and experiences, and giving them an opportunity to learn in a STEAM environment seems to punch all of the buttons in terms of what we need to bring to every corner of this city. We searched actually in 37208 North Nashville where we first looked, and for the reasons that came before this board on a previous hearing, it is virtually impossible to find space there or frankly anywhere in this city. The Olive Branch Church, they has extended an invitation to us to use perfectly viable, just exquisitely suited learning spaces already adjacent to their church in a community that actually sits in an urban mixed-use corridor, means that there would be ready public and private transportation for parents bringing their students to class. We would not have students driving in the 8th grade or even 9th grade in the 2nd year. The ability to take the work from the classroom into the community, and the ability to be a positive part of the community. These co-founders, also another board member, and several other board members who are seated behind us in support, have been working with the Drexel Institute. Our founder was accepted into a cohort so that she is learning and bringing into this space and this community best practices for education to supplement the work that we do in this city. We need a place to start. We have everything. We have the support. We have the leadership. We have the educators. We have the curriculum. We have the students. We do not have a physical home. The opportunity to start here for the first 2 years would mean everything. It would give us the opportunity to continue our ongoing efforts to identify a permanent home for what we anticipate to be a full middle school to high school eventually. For these reasons, we ask you to suspend concerns that were raised in this report, grant the exception here, and if necessary, put a 2-year limit or condition that would have us to come back. And finally, we anticipate no construction at all. Thank you.
Okay, you've got a minute. You don't have to use it, but you've got some time left.
I think she said it all.
Okay, well, thank you. Are there any questions that, looks like you've got a question, so.
Yes, the planning department mentioned outdoor areas and athletic fields, and do you have a plan for any outdoor learning or not?
The green area you see out there, our girls can take a blanket and go sit out there and eat lunch, but that's all. There's no athletic fields at all. We are a micro school, so we're actually only starting with 30 to 40 girls and adding 15 girls at max our 2nd year, so no athletics. And ballet is, yes, that will be a program for us, but that will be indoors. And we also have a partnership actually with Youth Encouragement Services to go use their gymnasium if we need to.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad they will have an opportunity to get outside, that they will have a green space that we can see. Thanks.
So that green space is mostly just for, like, sitting, correct? Because I know, like, what they're pointing at is a pretty steep, like, hillside, so there's no plans for, like, a football field or anything out there, right?
No, our girls, I don't think football is their thing.
Right.
I'm T. Wilson, 2005 Higgins Lane. A lot of our work with the girls outdoors will be through our field trips. We plan field trips with them every Friday. So they'll get a lot of experience and exercise. We go to the YWCA and other places across the city for them to get physical activity. We have no intentions on putting any athletic fields or anything in, or building anything there.
Any further questions? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and discuss.
I have one.
Oh, I'm sorry. No,
That's
we
right,
won't
you're always
close.
so
We
fast.
close. Mr. Ransom has a question.
And I think you said it at the end, this is temporary, to get things started while you look for something more permanent, correct? Okay. Thanks. That's it.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing and discuss.
I don't have an issue with it. I think it's a good mission, and they need the space, and they found a space that works for them. And I like the idea of putting the 2-year limit on it, and because they are looking for a permanent spot, but this gives them a place to stay for 2 years, and then they can come visit. I won't be on the board then, but they can come visit you all, and if they need to renew.
Is that a motion?
Well, do we want to limit them to the 2 years, considering school years typically don't fall in the fiscal year?
They mentioned the 2 years, but we could go up.
But it's like two school years, right? So that's
So it'd be
really
like
like,
2 school
yeah.
years.
So,
That's fine, yeah.
yeah. So if we could extend maybe to 3, so that it overlaps.
I think that's a good idea. Give them a little buffer.
And I think last time when we did something like this, I believe it was for the New Leaf School, did some other things around safety, like fencing, and some other stuff associated with, I just don't want that to be left off.
I think that,
Yeah, sorry, so when we did something like this with the New Leaf School, and they were going through, I think, a renovation and expansion, they found a temporary home at a local church there. We put some additional requirements, I think, to fencing and some other stuff to make sure and they were younger kids.
Yeah, that's what I was
So
gonna
I don't
say.
know if it's
think-
I
necessary
think
for high
these
school.
are
high
older
school
kids in
needs
a different
fencing.
curriculum, so I don't think
Right.
that the fence requirement is necessarily needed.
Yeah, I would like to think high schoolers don't need fencing, but
And Hume Fog is downtown and they don't have fencing.
That's true.
Somebody who went there,
Right on the street.
right on the street. I don't have any issue with it. I'm fine to approve it.
So can you make that, I don't think you made it a motion.
no, but I can. I'll move to approve the special exception request with a condition that it lasts for 3 years, and if they have to come back after 3 years, it can be heard again.
I'll second that. Okay, so there's a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. That passes. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Okay, we're adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.